Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome our emergency room nurses from Northside Cherokee Hospital here tonight, and they're going to lead us through the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you would like to remain standing, we have our good friend Bishop Gehring here who's going to lead us in invocation. Thank you, Bishop, for joining us.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Peppers, people of God, let us pray. Eternal God, our Heavenly Father, your word proclaim that men ought to always pray. We come assembled here with the city leaders of this great city, asking you, God, for your guidance. And Lord, if we ever need your guidance, we need your guidance now. We're living in a troubled and confused world. And we realize, God, that man do not have the answer. But your word said, in all of thy ways, acknowledge the Lord, and he shall direct our path. Thank you, our Father and our God, for these leaders. They may not always make the right decision, but give them the wisdom and the knowledge to do their very best and to stand upon the oath in which they have taken. Now, Lord, I pray for our police officers. So many are misunderstood, so many are accused. But I thank you, God, for the officers of this city. I'm mindful of the words of Chief Mitchell, that this department will be a department of heart. And Chief Merrifield, and along with the Assistant Chief, have carried on that saying. We thank you for our officers. And God, we pray for our children, because even today, many of our children are afraid of our officers. God, I stand here today. A 7-year-old Latino girl came to me and said, Officer Charles, are you a good officer or are you a bad officer? I said, I'm a good officer. She gave me some candy standing with her grandmother and her sister, and she broke down and cried. And I said to her, why are you crying? She said, now I'm not afraid of officers. Thank you for these officers who show love throughout this city. Continue, God, to show love towards our fellow man. But we are mindful that you said in the last day, the love of many will wax cold. Restore the love for our fellow man. And as we go into this election year, God, I don't know what the outcome will be, but I stand here to say to you, let your will be done. Bless Canton, bless Cherokee County, bless our leaders of this great city. In Jesus' name, amen.
I'd like to call to order our October 15th, 2020 council meeting. This time I'll have a consideration to approve the agenda. I do need to add a short executive session to discuss litigation. Do we have any other changes or additions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Motion to approve.
A motion?
Second.
And a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All members voted for the motion. This time, we are honored to have several guests and visitors with us tonight and a few proclamations. So our first is a proclamation for Emergency Nurses Week, hence our leaders who led us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're especially happy to have them here over the past few months and thank them for their works on the front lines and all they've done. And it's a great celebration of them tonight to be able to celebrate Emergency Nurses Week. So this is City of Canton Proclamation 2020-1001, Emergency Nurses Week Proclamation. Whereas there are approximately 167,000 emergency nurses in the United States who have expertise in caring for all emergency patients across the spectrum of the lifespan, ushering in life at birth and allowing for dignified death. And whereas emergency nurses are highly trained to recognize life-threatening problems and solve them on the spot, playing a vital role in treating patients in emergency situations, caring for those most in need, and saving lives on a daily basis. And whereas emergency nurses showed their true heart of gold in one of the most challenging years in modern history by treating patients in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas these characteristics provide a broad scope of practice for the delivery of critical and complex care within a limited time frame to healthcare consumers of all ages and backgrounds. Emergency nurses integrate critical thinking skills and knowledge of evidence-based practice into their delivery of care and decision-making. And whereas through research, education, and emergency nursing advocacy, the Emergency Nurses Association supports and honors the advancement of professionalism of emergency nurses everywhere. And whereas the ENA Foundation and other groups around our country have joined together to honor the extraordinary acts of service, compassion, and commitment that emergency nurses provide to patients every day. Now, therefore, I, Bill Grant, Mayor of the City of Canton, do hereby proclaim October 11th through 17th, 2020 as Emergency Nurses Week in Canton, Georgia, and invite all citizens to duly note this special occasion. And we have, I think, several representatives here tonight, including Sarah Putzer, the Emergency Department Manager, Kate Marple, Emergency Department Clinical Coordinator, Michelle Rogue, and sorry if I messed your name, the Emergency Department Clinician, and Andrea Keys, Emergency Department Medical Director. And if you want to join me up front, and whoever is here wants to join me to accept the proclamation. So may get some exercise tonight. So our second proclamation is for Extra Mile Day. And this is proclamation 2020-1015. Whereas Canton, Georgia is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Canton, Georgia is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Canton, Georgia is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its communities who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of the community. And whereas Canton, Georgia acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 500 extra mile cities in America and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2020. Now, therefore, I, Bill Grant, Mayor of Canton, Georgia, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2020 to be Extra Mile Day. I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day not only to go the extra mile in his or her own life, but also to acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country, and world a better place. We have no one to accept this tonight. It's really for the entire community, but at our first November meeting, we will acknowledge a few members in the community who go the extra mile every day in our community, and we look forward to that. We have one more additional proclamation, and this is the proclamation for National Native American History Month. National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, American Indians Committee Proclamation, National American Indian Heritage Month. Whereas the history and culture of our great nation have been significantly influenced by American Indians and indigenous people, and whereas the contributions of American Indians have enhanced the freedom, prosperity, and greatness of America today, whereas their customs and traditions are respected and celebrated as part of a rich legacy throughout the United States, and whereas Native American Awareness Week began in 1976 and recognition was expanded by Congress and approved by President George Bush in August 1990, designating the month of November as National American Indian Heritage Month, and whereas in honor of American Indian Heritage Month, community celebrations as well as numerous cultural, artistic, educational, and historical activities have been planned. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Bill Grant, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Canton, do hereby proclaim November as the National American Indian Heritage Month in Canton, Georgia, and urge our citizens to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. And I'll put on my mask and ask you guys to join me on front to accept the proclamation. Thank you all. Take care. Now the exercise portion of our meeting is over. We'll move on. Consideration to approve the minutes. You have in your packet the council meeting draft minutes from October 1st meeting. Do we have any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, entertain a motion to approve. Have a motion. Second? Second? Have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. All members voted to approve the minutes. There's several informational items this evening. The first is employee recognitions by Police Chief Stephen Merrifield. Welcome, Chief. Always great to have you here. Nice t-shirt.
Feels odd being here in a t-shirt, Mayor. I should have thought of the sports guy. I know. Good evening, Mayor and Council. One of my favorite things to do, and I know one of your favorite things, is for us to bring employees and recognize them. And so we've got several or a few to do tonight. I will start with Miss Lauren Stallings. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's not one of the favorite things for the employee. Ms. Stallings is our new records clerk supervisor. It is a position that we've needed for a while. We advertised for it, and it took us a great deal of time to find the absolute right person for that job, and we did with Ms. Stallings. And what people may not understand when you talk about the records for the police department is how complicated that can be and how important it is that our records are accurate and organized. to the point that if they're not accurate and organized, you could lose your state certification when the state audits, and the state audits once a year to make sure that all of your records are correct. So it's a tremendous amount of responsibility and very complicated, even to the point that just the other day I sat down with Ms. Stallings, what I thought was going to be a quick meeting of just explain to me the processes of how we do things. And that turned out to be a couple hours worth of a meeting, to the point she had to take me on a field trip and show me around and show me different drawers and things that we do. So it's a very important job. Ms. Stallings, I think, has been there a couple of months now. She's already made a huge impact. She's already come up with lists of these are some things we need to improve. Here's some things we need to do. Here's some checklists, so we do keep everything organized. So she has already hit the ground running. She comes to us with 5 years with Cherokee 911, and I can tell you that anybody that can be a 911 operator can withstand any amount of stress anyplace else. So we're very fortunate to have Ms. Stallings with us, and we congratulate her and welcome her to the Canton family. Next will be Officer Porter. Officer Ben Porter was sworn in with us last week. He comes to us with 3 years of experience from Dalton. He's a graduate of Reinhardt University, so he is familiar with our area. He actually did a ride-along with us when he was with Reinhardt, so it's great that I think he has finally come back home to where he wants to be. And already, I think he started Friday night riding with a field training officer and already getting great reports on him. We expect he will probably be in the abbreviated field training program where he'll do 20 ride-alongs. As you can imagine, I think we've discussed, we're challenged right now in our training program by putting 2 people in a car together. It's almost unheard of to have, and he's not a new officer, but even with our new officers, we're having to really work with it to have 2 officers in the same car together. Even though they both wear masks the entire time, it's still challenging. But he is doing a great job already. We expect great things out of him, and with the abbreviated course, and yesterday we swore in Officer Green. I'll bring him next time we come. He has his badge pinning tomorrow. He's 11 years from Forsyth. So these are 2 officers that we expect can immediately make an impact with our city and with our department. So we congratulate him and welcome to the Canton family. I told him when they sent him for uniforms, he's going to cost us a fortune. He's tired of big jokes now. He don't want to hear it. So now I would like to get Sergeant Ben Gillen and Lieutenant Rodney Campbell, please. The longer they've been here, the more they hate coming up here. But Sergeant Gillen we're recognizing him tonight for 22 years of service with the city of Canton, and Lieutenant Rodney Campbell for 18 years with the city of Canton. And I will say that throughout my entire career when I was here in my other department, I always said when I leave a department, I'm not so concerned what the people above me thought of me, but I'm more concerned with what was the people I worked with, what did they think of me. And I can tell you there's no more respected members of the Canton Police Department by their peers, by their employees, than Sergeant Gillen and Lieutenant Campbell. In all honesty, if Steve Merrifield wasn't with the Canton Police Department tomorrow, this police department would rock right along. If Sergeant Gillen wasn't here or Lieutenant Campbell wasn't here, it would be an impact in this department. They influence every single day, and they are to a level that I know off-duty, their phone rings off the hook by officers, supervisors, some supervisors with more rank, asking, hey, what do you think about this? What should we do on this? They are valuable. They are cornerstones of the Canton Police Department, And we are very fortunate to have had them all these years. And it's just a huge amount of experience and knowledge in both of these employees. And I just want to thank both of them for their loyalty and their dedication to the city of Canton. I guess they were waiting around for these. We have an extra surprise for Lieutenant Campbell. The final thing that I'd like to do is recognize Lieutenant Campbell. September 17th, in the early evening hours, we had a young man who was threatening to jump off the bridge at Riverstone 575. Our officers responded and closed down the interstate and closed down Riverstone, and a couple officers, Sergeant Lilly and Corporal Lewis, attempted to talk to the young man, and he would not speak with them. At that point, he was straddling the rail of the bridge, and at some point put his other leg over the other side till both legs were dangling off the bridge. Lieutenant Campbell got there and was able to strike up a rapport with the young man. And in the words of Sergeant Lilly, who works for Lieutenant Campbell, who actually recommended him for a life-saving award, Sergeant Lilly said that there was no doubt by the way this young man was looking down and talking that he was going to jump. And in our business, unfortunately, we deal with a lot of people who threaten suicide, but you do gain some insight sometimes when people are serious about what they're about to do. And Lieutenant Campbell was able to talk to the young man for several minutes. He was able to discuss things with the young man about his future, the young man's future, what the future could hold. And at some point was able to gain enough trust for the young man to want to shake his hand. And once he reached out, Lieutenant Campbell, much as you see in the movies, was able to pull him on the other side of the bridge. And then, and Sergeant Lilly even went further in his write-up to say, Lieutenant Campbell didn't end it there. He continued to speak with the young man, took him back to his car, went with him to the hospital, and spent time with him at the hospital to continue to follow up with this young man to try and help him out. And then, of course, at the hospital, get him the help that he needed. So for everything that Lieutenant Campbell did that evening, and again, in the words of the officers that were there, this young man was going to jump, that Lieutenant Campbell saved this young man's life. And for those reasons, we will be giving Lieutenant Campbell our life-saving award. And I have to say, we have a new plaque here tonight. We're starting tonight. And it was actually done by Officer Pacer Cordry. So he's got skills. But it's a beautiful plaque, but it is certainly deserved something like this. So, Lieutenant, thank you so much. Thank you. And it was everybody, wasn't it? The officers knew he was going to say that. So, thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Well, thank you all, and congratulations. And Sergeant Gillen and Lieutenant Campbell, thank you for your long-term service to our city. And Lieutenant Campbell, you exemplify everything that's great about our department. We appreciate you. And Officer Porter, it's always great to have another Dalton, Georgia boy in the community. So, and I think, Chief, you also have the September Uniform Crime Report.
Yes, sir. The things that I note on this, and this is for September of 2020, the violent crime from, if you compared it from September 19 to what we saw in September 20, was either the exact same, and by the exact same, thankfully, a lot of zeros in those categories, or was decreased. It was decreased by 75% from what we saw in September 2019. For the difference between August of 2020 to September 2020, we also saw a decrease of 50%. And again, the categories there either remain the same or were down. Our violent crime is up 23% year to date. And again, those are for some of the reasons that I have discussed when you look at some of the very, very small numbers and how one category can be 200% when it's only one different. For our property crime, our burglaries are down, our forced burglaries are down 47%. And even more exciting is that our non-forced are down 100%. And that's the difference between 10 that we would have had last year at this time to 0 this time. And we, as we've said before, what we're proud of that is that's because citizens doing their part and making sure they've locked the doors and so they don't have a non-forced burglary. One of the areas that stands out in the property crimes is larceny was up 180% from August to September. Larceny is generally the misdemeanor thefts. But it was only up 12% from what September 2019 would, which shows what I see out of that is August was just so low, which we're thankful for, that when we had an increase, it made it look larger to 180. Overall, our total property crimes are down 24%, and our total crime, Part 1 crimes as reported in our UCR, is down 32% for year to date. Our accidents are down, for the month, from August to September, we're down 9.63%, but we are still, I think it's like 1.69 for our accidents above, 16% up for the year. And I don't have our calls for service. We're still gathering that information. We rely on Cherokee 911 to get that, and sometimes there's a little delay, but I will get that and update that for the mayor and council. Any questions, mayor and council?
Questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
Thank you, ma'am and sirs.
Do we have any other announcements? We have no one signed up for our 10-minute public input. No consent agenda. We'll move into old business. Item A, discussion and possible action to award the Old Ball Ground Sewer and Etowah River Trail Expansion Project to STRAC, Inc. Mr. Hatabian.
Yeah, this is the second hearing on this project, and we're just ready to move forward on it. Any questions?
Ms. McGrew.
Thank you. Is this staff's recommendation to award the contract to STRAC?
Yes.
Okay. And just for clarification, I had posted something about this, and we had just some questions clarifying that it's both for the sewer replacement line and the trail, so it's not just the trail. It's for,
Right,
it's for both projects, correct? Mm-hmm. Any other questions or comments?
Motion to award the Sewer and Etowah River Trail Extension Project to STRAC Incorporated.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All members voted to approve the motions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item B, update on PMAM Alarm Management System Contract. Mr. Merrifield.
Mayor and council, I was amazed when I saw the agenda tonight, and I was like the majority of it. Now I know how Mr. Patton feels.
I'm sure.
As you remember, I came in on the work session on the PMAM alarm system. What we're doing is, because that has to tie in with the Cherokee 911, so we get that data from them. As I think I mentioned last time, they are changing to a new CAD system, and that's probably not going to happen until middle of December, end of December. And in our talking to them, what they've asked is, can we wait to do that until they change, it would make any sense to do it now and then have to change it. So the update is we are going to, we're wanting to wait on that. Also, I was able to, Mr. Dyer asked me to obtain the contract that PMAM has with Cobb County, and we were able to get that, and Mr. Dyer was able to look at that, and I think it comes more in line with some of the things that he would like to see in our contract. So he has that now, and we're just waiting on to me, there's no reason to go forward until we know we can tie into the Cherokee 911, and that's up and running. So that's what we're asking, is just to wait until we get to that point.
Great. Thank you for the update. Any questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate you. We have no new business to discuss tonight, so Mr. Peppers, City Manager's Report.
Good evening. Feels like I haven't seen any of you for a couple of days. One thing I mentioned to the mayor that I thought was important to go over during the report tonight is just to mention to the public the tenets that we discussed at our retreat. And so we've put these together so that we can share them with those that might be watching from home. So these are some guiding principles for our roadmap planning for the city. We have 7 of these that we drafted at the retreat, and here's the language for each one of them. The first tenet is creating great neighborhoods. Safe, attractive, connected, and inviting neighborhoods are the foundation of Canton's hometown appeal. All residents deserve quality housing that reflects our community character through thoughtful design and responsible development practices. Next is celebrating the diversity of our community. The diverse cultures and communities within Canton are vibrant and engaging. Economic, cultural, and social diversity is encouraged throughout the city. Advancing regional economic success. Utilizing existing business strengths in industry, healthcare, and an entrepreneurial spirit, Canton seeks to expand its economic footprint. Diverse and innovative business growth will support jobs, attract investment, and create tourism opportunities. Enhancing historic downtown Canton. Preservation, entrepreneurship, arts and culture, and community-centric activities are cornerstones of economic development within downtown Canton. Benefiting the entire city, downtown redevelopment creates jobs, attracts investment, increases property values, and generates tourism. Sustaining our natural environment. Canton residents appreciate our natural beauty, proximity to the mountains, ample green spaces, and the Etowah River. Projects in the city will promote interaction with nature through sustainability, stewardship of resources, and innovative design. Connecting citizens to parks and recreation. A healthy community provides access to nature. Residents should be connected with local parks through trails, sidewalks, and additional transportation options. Recreational opportunities should be available to and inclusive for all. And leading with excellence. City council, staff, and citizen boards will foster civic participation and serve ethically, transparently, responsibly, and efficiently. And those are the tenets that we put forth at the retreat that everyone agreed to. So I thought it was important to share those during this time tonight. A couple other things I have on my report. Council had asked for a couple of things at the retreat, and I've got some information on those. One of the items that came up in the retreat was about road names and the process for naming roads. And so we discussed that at the community development level. What we'll be asking for is for developers, when they work on projects, to supply us a list of names of potential roadways for us to go through on our own and selecting those that have merit and maybe those that are a little bit too closely related to other roads in the city before they submit those on to the county to be approved by 911. So that gives us a layer of at least reviewing that process. Came up at the retreat about an application with Urban Land Institute for a TAP project along Marietta Highway. We're working on that right now, and that'll be partially funded with a grant from Georgia Power. There was a question about Shoal Creek and our local maintenance paving. We received word from Cherokee County Water and Sewer that they are almost done with their timbering operation. They're trying to deal with some pine beetles in the land that they have out there. They're almost finished with that. They expect it to be done in the next several weeks. And the paving that we'll do on Old Shoal Creek will not be until next year. A couple of other things. We're working on our current LMIG paving. Great Sky is completed. I believe they finished it up today. They were also working in Town Mill. I believe it's completed at this time. And the last two streets that'll be done are Archer and Academy downtown. We also received some feedback. Let me pull up that email real quick on the parking deck. That was a question that was asked. Give me 1 second. So we had talked about getting with Clark Patterson Lee, our designer on the parking deck, to ask them some specific questions about moving forward with a scaled down version. The timeline to design and engineer the smaller scaled deck would be about 3 months for total design time. That would also provide time to go over elevations at the same time, similar to what was done on the original deck. The cost of those designs and engineering plans are somewhere in the range of $100,000. There would not need to be any additional geotechnical or survey work done related to the project. The original cost estimates were around $2.6 million. Some of that's going to be based on the elevation. So the more ornate the exterior elevation, the higher price. So we'll have to go through that during the elevation process. And then they could probably get started sometime in November if we sought to move forward on that design. So that's something for council to consider. And then the last thing that I have, an email went out earlier today. We need some clarification on a condition that was placed in zoning back in 2016. Does that sound like fun? So this is related to Pod H, which is in Riverstone. And I believe you received a copy of a site plan and also the conditions. Recall that at that time, a good number up here were not on the council, so I'll give a little bit of background. Pod H, which includes the area where the apartments are across from Teasley, was designed so that it would have commercial on the front near Reinhardt College Parkway, single-family residential in the middle, and then apartments in the back. And the developer basically came in and said they wanted to have the apartments up the number of units. We decided we didn't want the single family in the middle, that it should just be apartments, because that was kind of weird to have single family between commercial and apartments, and cap the number of the multifamily apartments in that particular area. In doing so, there were some conditions placed upon the whole pod, and the specific condition that's of question is listed on the front page as number 2, where it talks about parking for Pod H. And if you look specifically at A, it says Tract 1 mixed use. It says a maximum of 2 rows of parking along Reservoir Drive, designed so that one driveway aisle shall be nearest to Reinhardt Parkway. We don't really know what that means. So the designer on their site plan put together a concept, which you have. And basically what they've tried to do is think through what this means. Staff has a couple of different interpretations of what this means. I spoke with Mr. Dyer, and he and I have an interpretation of what this means. So I don't know if you want to tell me what it means, or if you want me to tell you what I think it means, and you see if you agree. Which way would you want to do this? So looking at yes, ma'am.
The drive in front of the convenience store and the one that says footprint,
Yes, ma'am.
is that designed for one-way traffic or will it be two-way?
It's designed for two-way.
Two-way.
It's shown as two-way.
Thank you.
So the question is whether the drive aisle, the way it's written, it's kind of confusing as to, we don't know if it was supposed to say Reservoir Drive in both places as opposed to Reservoir and Reinhardt Parkway. I know that at one time there was a discussion about headlights shining out on Reservoir Drive, and so it kind of makes sense that if it was supposed to be Reservoir Drive that you wouldn't want cars parked facing Reservoir Drive. Does that make sense? So their lights would be shining out into the roadway. But the question really for us is what happens on Reinhardt College Parkway. At the time that all this came about, the discussion was that that front part needed to be more mixed use. It just didn't need to be average commercial. It should have multi-story buildings. There should be a consideration for office and maybe some upstairs residential. I believe what was intended was to have the majority of the parking behind the building so that it's not a huge service parking lot and the building sitting way back. I think what they have provided in here meets what the intent was, which was a little bit of parking up front, the majority of the parking in the rear. The question is, do you want that row of parking between that drive aisle and the road? Or was the intent just to have a row of parking next to the building? And the engineer, I will tell you, the engineer on this has been very kind. He said, I just need to know. That way I can get it designed for my clients. That's my only concern because I don't want to move too far in one direction and then have to change things back up. So we said we would bring it to council to see if we could figure out what it was that you think the intent was. We've gone back to watch some video and it's not really clear to us the intent from the meetings either.
I was going to ask you if you'd watch the video. I recall some of these discussions, and I recall the intent being that the concern was that the parking be on the inside of, or on the other side of the building and not on the side of the Reservoir Drive. But that was my general recollection. But I also recall Ms. McGrew being discussing that in those meetings. But I know you had your hand up. Did you have?
Well, I've had 4 years to think about it. So, just curious, after having 4 years to think this over, what difference does it make if there are lights shining on things in Reservoir and it doesn't matter if they're shining on Reinhardt College? Yeah. And we don't know what's going to be on that corner yet that's vacant, right?
Opposite. I believe that's the land that the school district is working with Riverstone.
So it's not going to be bedrooms that
Yeah.
lights will be disturbing people sleeping. So I think that's a moot point now. And it's apartments and commercial across Reinhardt College Parkway.
Correct.
And there's enough landscaping in front of the apartments that I think lights are dimmed. And will there be landscaping between the parking and Reinhardt and Reservoir?
So they will have to meet the city's overlay for that area, which will include street lights, sidewalks, landscape. I don't know about the tree survey, if there's a tree survey that's been done yet or not.
The overlay standard does require the placement of street trees with the sidewalk and the pedestrian style street lights.
We have adopted the policy now of no trees in the beauty strip, haven't we?
That's correct. All
We
the
have
trees will be
learned our lesson.
behind the sidewalk, yes.
Okay. Next.
Any other comments, questions? Did the community development have comments, or were they okay with this plan?
I think we had three different opinions on what that definition meant, and that's why we wanted Mr. Patton can come and maybe talk about what he thought it meant.
Yes, at the staff level, there was a little bit of a difference of opinion. One of the staff members, in reading the conditions, felt like that adjacent to Reinhardt College Parkway, the building should be pushed forward adjacent to Reinhardt College Parkway with no parking or no driveway aisle between the building and Reinhardt College Parkway. Another staff member, basically me, was interpreting the guidelines that the driveway and one row of parking would be allowed adjacent to Reinhardt College Parkway, the same for Reservoir Drive. Staff really doesn't have that big of an issue as it has been proposed, if that is the wishes of City Council, but we did have a little difference of opinion in reading the conditions.
I would mention that when I think about having the building all the way up against the road, my mind immediately goes to another project in Cherokee County that I was a part of many years ago at the Outlet Mall, where they pushed the restaurants up to Ridgewalk Parkway. And it looks good from the street side, but the way the vehicles interact with pedestrians inside is kind of wonky. You know, your drive-through's right there, and if you're going to the Chick-fil-A, you got 2 lanes, and you got to walk through the drive-through to get into the building. And with them not knowing the specific use of each of these, you know, if you've got the building all the way against the road and you end up with restaurants, where does the dumpster pad go? And are you walking through the dumpster area to get into? So there could be, those would be my concerns in trying to push the building all the way up against the roadway and not having a true front and back.
Ms. McGrew?
Thank you. Will there be suites on the interior and then suites on the exterior by Reinhardt College Parkway? Or will the suite run from the middle parking all the way to the road? Will they be long suites?
They have not broken it down into suites yet. I would be very surprised if the suites don't run front to back, though, because then there would be some additional fire code things they would have to follow that would be a huge expense as it relates to uses in a building where you don't have front to back access.
It would be handy if there was an entrance at both ends, you know, fire code, of course. But in moving the buildings forward to Reinhardt College Parkway, then that would, by all intents and purposes, turn into the back of the building, which is usually not aesthetically pleasing, and it would be on the roadway. And I just don't think that's a look we want.
There is a condition that already specifies that the buildings adjacent to the roadways do have to have that storefront look, if you will. The entrance would be aligned, and the look of the building has to be towards Reinhardt and Reservoir from one of the other conditions on the list.
I just want to avoid that back of the building look.
Any other comments? So to take it, council is okay with this plan?
We just wanted to make sure that we weren't completely missing something on that condition that you may read it differently than we do. So.
You got me. So, I mean, I think with it being so open to interpretation, I mean, I would kind of see it being hard to enforce either way. Ms. McGrew?
Thank you. If there is parking on both sides of the building and there's not an entrance on both sides of the building, what are you going to do about handicapped people getting from the entrance and exit side of the building from having parked on the opposite side?
I expect with the parking, the way it's laid out, it's going to function more like that strip of buildings along Highway 20 at Canton Marketplace. So, for instance, Jimmy John's has a door on the front and the back. Chipotle's got a door on the front, but it's on the side of the building, if that makes sense. It's really up to the use on how they move things around, but they'll be required to have adequate handicap accessible parking near the front doors, wherever the front might be.
If there's a suite that has entrances on both sides of the building, there will be a requirement through the construction plan review and approval process to address routes of accessibility to both of those doors, and I suspect that we will see handicap spaces on both sides of the buildings, similar to O'Charlie's has a front and a back entrance, and there's handicapped spaces that are accessible to both front and back. That would be a part of the review and approval during the construction plan process.
What are they going to do about the pond?
That is a stormwater detention for that entire pod, and so it will stay as it is.
Nothing further.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Patton. I'm glad you had an opportunity to grace us tonight.
Thank you. We will notify the designers and applicant if they move forward with this concept plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Council.
And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Peppers. Just have a couple things. First of all, thank you, Mr. Peppers, for getting those answers back to us so quickly that we had for you at the retreat. And I did want to thank you and Mr. Ingram and our city clerk and our city attorney who joined us at the retreat, and Ms. Bell for organizing our retreat, and especially our council who showed up and did the work and produced, I think, great work. The tenants are something I think we're very proud of. Will be the building blocks of our roadmap for Canton, which we are targeting to circulate a draft in November. And the council is intending to adopt the new roadmap in December and begin implementing that in January. So we're very excited. A lot of great projects and ideas are in store for us, and I think the roadmap will help us really just to move forward. All in the same page and in the same direction. So the tenants, we wanted to report on those tonight because it was the main work product of our retreat, and we spent a lot of time on those and debating a few words here and there. But we did want to get them out there to the public so they can begin to look at those, and we will circulate the drafts of everything we do. As I've said before, the roadmap begins and ends with citizen engagement and input. So we're very excited about that. The only other item I have is Mr. Carlin has given us his appointments for the Diversity Inclusion Task Force and his Public Safety Citizen Advisory Board appointments. I would like to give those tonight and have council's approval on those. And for the Diversity Task Force, Ms. Patty Reveles is his appointee. And for the Public Safety Citizens Advisory Board, Deputy Greg McGee, both Canton citizens. And I will make the nomination if I had a second for the nomination. For those nominations? Second? So all in favor of those appointments, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Awesome. All members voted for your appointments. Thank you, Mr. Carlin, for those. And with that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss litigation.
Motion to adjourn to executive session.
Motion, second? And a second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All members voted to adjourn. Meeting's adjourned, executive session. Thank you.